It was better than Lego. It was better than Lego. It was better than Lego.
Oh, and welcome to Better Than Lego. Good evening. This is me, Mike Keating, Mike Neely, and with me this evening we've got Geoff Foster. Good evening, Geoff.
Good evening.
We're just going to review round 24, then look forward to round 25, the final weekend of the NRL competition. Strange competition it's been this year, but still places to be decided for the finals, and also potentially it's still a battle for the top spot. First of all, though, we'll have a go back through the weekend's results, and a great weekend it was. There's only one real major talking point, which was the Latrell Mitchell incident, which we'll come on to a little bit later. But we'll start very much with the Thursday and Friday games, and a couple of games that we picked out as games of the week. Geoff lived up to it, which was the Knights, who scraped home 15-14 against the Titans. Interesting completion rates. I'll run this by you. 86% to 75% completion rate, 54% to 46% possession, 200 meters more carrying the ball, 5 line breaks to 2, 28 tackle busts to 22, 10 more meters per set of 6 that they had, 4 forced dropouts to none, 300 meters more kicking distance, 5 errors to 11, and yet the Titans still lost.
Well, to be honest, that's really the story of the Titans season, really, isn't it? Because they've certainly got. I think we've said this before. They've got scoring power. They can score from anywhere on the pitch. They play some great rugby. You've got some very skillful players. The problem is I think they're just, the ratio of skillful players versus players who want to do the hard graft it's just not right at the Titans at all. Everybody wants to be playing hero ball, and not many people want to be doing the kind of work that you need to do to get into the playoffs, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's been the story all season.
I think I thought they would have been unlucky really on Thursday. Newcastle they're just getting the results at the moment, really, aren't they? Pearce again just held control again the game, and that's the one thing I think that they've got that can stand them in good stead going forward. I don't think they'll get much further than maybe the first round of playoffs, the Knights, but they were outdone, they were outplayed, and I thought the Titans were a bit unlucky. But again, just the old game manager, Mitchell Pearce, just made sure that it was difficult for the Titans to really, get a proper control of the game, not football, control the game. Just excuse me.
I think
sorry, I'm being rude.
I think the thing is with the Titans, I'm really struggling to kind of think of too many sides, worse sides as in the NRL, that are completely kind of lacking in that game IQ, football IQ. Like I said, they've got a lot of. If you look at the halves, all the halves are skillful players, but brains. It just what you really need. Most sides have got at least one player, one hard-nosed player who knows what to do when things get tough. They know, how to change the emphasis of the game, how to get themselves into kind of prevent mode. So when things are, going wrong, they can change the game in some respect. The Titans just don't seem to have anybody there. They've got plenty of skillful guys. Skill is not the problem. It's game intelligence. They have no game intelligence at all. No one has any awareness.
I disagree with you a bit there. I like Fogarty. I know what you're saying. I certainly wouldn't suggest that any of them are at the level that they need to be on the game management. And I think Sexton's shown flashes as he comes through, but maybe that's for next season. But they've put themselves in a bit of a behind the ball now, haven't they? Really, with the relying on other results. The Friday morning game, which was another cracker, and another one of the games that we singled out as the games to watch, which was Warriors and Raiders. Excuse me. Raiders scoring 28 unanswered points. Chad Townsend's kind of departure with his shoulder or arm injury, I can't remember what it was, he's out for the season. That kind of killed the control that the Warriors had on the game. Worth mentioning, Jordan Rapana, 286 metres, 2 line breaks, 12 tackle busts, and kicked 4 goals. And that was after we switched to the wing when we saw that Sebastian Chris had been yanked off after Ricky Stewart had seen him concede 2 tries from kicks through. Great performance from the Raiders, Geoff.
Yeah, well, considering that a lot of Raiders fans were thinking very serious about showing Rapana the door since he's come back from Rugby Union, and look, to be honest, it has taken him some time to kind of, to get himself back up to speed. But you've got to say about the guy is, he turns the intensity up to 11 every game. Sometimes things can go a little bit awry, but when you start seeing things like 12 tackle busts, I think these must be going up every year, because I remember a day like where if a player had 3 tackle busts in a game, you were thinking, that was a man of the match performance. Now you're seeing guys having 12, 14 tackle busts in games. It's just unbelievable, isn't it, really? That shows you, I guess it shows you that how the game has changed and how it's a lot more, the emphasis is more on attack more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm glad to mention that, because that's one thing we wanted when we get to like the off season. One of the things we want to look at is obviously watch a few old games long, but one of the things we wanted to talk about perhaps towards the end of the season is the developments that we've seen in the last couple of years, and that in terms of we've obviously had the changes to the rules that have happened this season in the NRL, but what I'm talking about really is the changing role of the fullbacks, which we kind of mentioned with Tedesco last week, but how that role in itself has changed, in the last couple of 2 or 3 seasons even, hasn't it? And you've got roles now, edge players, second rowers who are expected to be playmakers as well as just battering rams on that. We saw that perhaps with Wade Graham. Wade Graham is definitely one of those, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the season. But that's one thing we'll look at. Warriors, though, that's then done for the season. I think they've done okay. I mean, I'm not sure. Could you expect much more from them given the circumstances that they've been operating in?
Well, I think that they're in a similar position to a lot of other NRL clubs in that in certain positions there's a lot of talent, but in the halfback positions, it's really just being monopolised by a handful of teams. And if you don't have one, or in some cases, some of these sides have got 2 top class halfbacks, you just not, you just can't compete. You might be able to win a game against one of the better sides, but there's no way you're going to string together the kind of the number of wins that really they need to be challenging. I know they picked up the lad from the Broncos, but he's playing fullback, and he might stay at the fullback spot anyway. And there's still a little bit of
got Nicarima and Charles Harris-Tavita, haven't they? And Wade Egan played well again on the Raiders. So I think for a settled spine, they should be okay next year. I would think.
Nicarima is another one of these players, and see that he's an off the cuff player. To me, he's closer to a kind of a roving hooker than a genuine half. There's not. I don't really see any playmaking ability in him. He's an off the cuff player. He reacts to whatever situation he's faced with. Harris-Tavita is a younger player. He's still trying to establish himself. They need a good scrum half, really. The problem is getting
Sean Johnson coming next year as well, of course. Don't forget.
Yeah, well, they need
Sean Johnson's enough for you. If those 5 players aren't enough for you, then you're a very hard taskmaster to please, mate.
Well, I am.
Onto the big game then, the big talking point of the weekend, which was South crushed a depleted Roosters side. I won't talk too much about the game. Let's go to the big talking point. Latrell Mitchell, You know, what can you say from it? I think a reckless tackle. I did find it quite. I've seen an interview with Nick, what's his name, Politis, the Roosters CEO, where apparently was on some sort of Roosters fan forum talking to them, where he was almost breaking down as, you know, talking about the incident, and what he was talking about was, you know, Manu's reaction to what had gone on. I mean, we could talk about, you know, the actual incident itself, but Manu's reaction, you know, was the look of a friend who'd been, I won't say stabbed in the back, but that it did look like that. And he, you know, saying, why would you do that? Why did you do that? And I'll be honest with you, I found it quite moving as well, watching it, you know, not so much as much of the time as watching it afterwards, you know, when you spend the time looking at that. I mean, and I know you have your opinions on Latrell.
Yeah. Well, look, I've been saying now for a while, the closest analog to Latrell, and I think it's not just on the field, off the field, is, to me, he's just the NRL Paul Gascoigne, and I see the same kind of arc for him that I saw with Gascoigne. A very popular guy, his teammates all love him. Gets a supremely talented player, has issues, fitness issues, definitely, I think, and there's a fuse in his brain that when it snaps, it just all conscious thought just goes out of his head, and he just reacts. And look, I agree with, you know, pretty much with what most rational people have said, is that no, he didn't go out there to break the guy's cheekbone. However, you know, I would have to ask that if you look at that, well, it's not even tackle, because really what it is, it's just a lunge. He just comes barreling over 100 miles an hour. And I would ask anybody who watches that, just say, well, if we say that he's not trying to break the guy's jaw, okay, well then what is he trying to do?
Yeah, he was definitely trying to hurt him. Yeah,
yes. He was trying to completely clean him out.
Yes,
you can't look. You could say, you know, he was unlucky. This, I get all that, but look, when you're a guy, I mean, I don't. Well, how heavy is he? What, he's 16 stone, I would say, minimum. Yeah, 16 stone, definitely 16 stone. 16 stone. He can run as he can run as fast as quite a lot of wingers. When you've got that amount of you know, that amount of mass moving, coming head on, another big guy himself, you know, the collision is going to be catastrophic, and he must know this. All this kind of thing, like, well, the thing that I keep hearing is like, well, what was he supposed to do? What was he supposed to do? And I'm thinking, come on. There are players who approached a classic example. I looked at the Bulldogs game where there were some great last-ditch tackles that were made, and they didn't. You know, those guys weren't, you know, wrapping their their arms around people's throats, and smashing the cheekbones and stuff like that. There's no ways of tackling people. He wasn't trying to grab him. He wasn't grasping at him. His arm wasn't. He
shoulder charged him. He effectively shoulder charged him and flung his arm around to make it look like he wasn't at the end, which I think, you know, Buzz picked up on that in terms of, you know, that made it worse. I mean, it's bad enough to hit, but then the flinging around, the wild arm, swinging arm he had as well.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing for Latrell is, right, I do think he's a very honest player. And when I say he's honest, he's too honest for his own good, really, because the really kind of the real practice, you know, people who practice the dark arts, they have all the kind of like you know, reactions all down pat before they do it, so they can con the referee. The problem with Latrell is when he tries to fake the reaction, it looks totally fake. And this is the thing, if you look at all the kind of instances he's been involved in, there's been kind of like an attempt to kind of mask, you know, what he's done, and it looks totally, because look, the guy is he's honest in what he's doing. He's not trying to do it by subterfuge. He's been caught out many times, and that's the other thing. How many times has happened this season? He could have.
It's his third suspension. It's third suspension, isn't it? He's facing
the
minimum.
third that he's been caught for.
Yeah.
Look, there was the one game he played where I thought he could have had 4 suspensions off one game.
Yeah, that was the West's game, wasn't it? Yeah, where he clattered Nofaluma and kicked out at, was it Ghana? I think, I can't remember now. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. But like I said, for me, I just see the same thing happening.
Yeah.
Like I did with Paul Gascoigne. I just can see this all going badly wrong unless somebody can get a grip of him. Whether they can do or not, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it during midweek in terms of, the anger issues. And again, Buzz on 360 mentioned that he thinks he's got anger issues. And I mentioned there was an interview with him because I didn't realise until recently that he was related to Yvonne Goolagong. I think it's his great auntie or something like that. And she hasn't had anything to do with him. Now, I mean, I'm reading between the lines there on that, I don't know enough about Mitchell, don't know what his background's like or anything like that. I imagine he was a fairly rambunctious kid. That maybe that had something to possibly do with it. But the way that he sort of, I have nothing to do with her, I don't want anything to do with her, isn't really a positive. I'm going to use the word energy, but it isn't really, it's the kind of thing that would eat at you and undermine you, on a daily basis. And I do wonder if there are unresolved issues, which is kind of what Buzz was hinting at. And until he manages those, he's always going to be reckless. We've had there's numerous players like this, isn't there? Over down through the years, there's reckless players, and there's players like if you use Maria Hargreaves, a player who can be physical, aggressive, but he's not reckless.
Well, not lately. I think there was a reckless element in his game, and he's worked to try and get it to dial it down a bit. But look, the thing was, I remember when Latrell was at the Roosters. Several times it was mentioned that pretty much Robinson had to really manage him, and essentially was treating him with kid gloves. Because he had issues, and I think really you can see that those issues have not been resolved.
Yes. I mean, I think the comparison to Gaza is interesting. I think it's slightly different just because the injury. I'm not sure he's going to injure himself so much on that one, but the recklessness certainly, and the needed to have some sort of chaperone or mind is interesting. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Maria Hargreaves and the Roosters. I mean, they were going mad on 360 about it, that all the Roosters players were up off the bench. Hargreaves was eyeballing what's his name, Mitchell, and then of course they had words at the end there as well. I mean, there's not much to say to that other than that I can't wait for Roosters versus Souths next season when Mitchell's playing.
I've got to say that you can always rely on kind of Wayne Bennett to kind of cut right to the heart of the situation when they started asking him after the match, and he's going, well, maybe he should just shut up because he's got 2 of those players on his own team. And look, the reality is that Victor Radley is sailed as close to the win, maybe even closer. This season. So
I mean, whatever. I mean, I hope he sorts it out, because I think we both have to say that. I mean, as an excitement machine, he's got to be one of the. He's certainly in the top 5 players to watch in the NRL, if not potentially, in the top 3 players, just for pure excitement when he's on form. I mean, he did have a tremendous game. He barreled over the line. I hated the fact that he threw the ball on the floor, but I mean, it was great TV. It's great entertainment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's look. This is the thing, isn't it? I imagine that he must be, in terms of merchandising and popularity, he's got to be in the top 2-3 players in the NRL. I think the NRL, the kids are loving, because he's the type of player that the kids, kind of gravitate towards. But then again, once you start seeing people walking around with fractured cheekbones and then then the parents start to get involved, isn't it?
Yes.
And this is the kind of issue that you had in American football, that once the parents start to get involved and said, hey, listen, we don't like the look of this, we'll go play soccer instead. that's a concern. You know, that's a big concern.
Now you've mentioned about, you know, apparently I believe Penrith Panthers are the team for the kids that the kids love. You know, and Brian Tottle, I believe, is one of the most. He might well be one of the most popular players in the league amongst the kids. They were talking about it on 360 the other day. It's all, you know, all the high fives, all the acrobatics they do, the young players, and obviously play exciting rugby. And you know, we talk about Melbourne, don't we, as, you know, the evil empire. And despite Penrith's dominance, we haven't once been critical of them as any sort of evil, because they play great rugby. Okay, so before we move on, though, just a couple of things I wanted to mention on the game. Single out Mark Nichols, 31-year-old prop who had his career best game against the Roosters. Was it 245 metres, 2 tries? I think he'd only scored his first try for him last year. I think it's his first career brace. A childhood friend or something that he'd made a pact in. I think did they say it was in 2015 that if ever he scored 2 tries in a game, he would get a tattoo of Mark Nichols, which he did, apparently. And also, Wayne Bennett's made him captain for this week's game for the Broncos, which is the first for him as well, which is, I thought, is a great touch. Yeah. Probably worth mentioning as well. I don't know if you saw Trent Robinson's press conference, but I thought he handled, and he has handled, the Mitchell and the Manu incident exceptionally well.
It could have. Look, there are some coaches that, you know, we won't mention the names, that would have poured petrol on the whole situation. And look, the thing is, Robinson's he's had the player under him. He knows the kind of issues that Latrell is kind of dealing with. So, like I said, I don't think anybody believes he intentionally went out to bust his cheekbone, but it's still very, 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 very saddening, really. You know,
it was
tragic. You know, a real tragedy. Yeah.
Okay, excuse me. We'll go on to the 3 Saturday games. I'll go through fairly quickly over these. The Dragons, who fell apart after a good start, really, against the Cowboys. Thought Tom Dearden probably had his best game that I've seen for the Cowboys. They brought to an end the 10-game missing streak. 80 missed tackles in the whole game. Tamalolo's, returned to the, I shouldn't have drank fizzy pop. Tamalolo's returned to the front row, produces 209 metres. And then the Sharks against the Broncos were the Sharks, who are looking okay. Will Kennedy again had a dazzling performance for the Sharks, and Payne Haas 253 metres. The next highest Brisbane forward, 119. So that gives you some idea. That's why they've paid him extra. Apparently, they've just agreed to pay him an extra 200 grand a year, which I think is interesting because he's not signed an extension, which is interesting. Not yet. No, so they've agreed to pay him an extra 200k. So I think it looks like to me he's being clever. Let's see in which way the Broncos go the next couple of seasons before he commits to any sort of 10-year ball and chain. So good to see the Cowboys get back. Disappointing end to a disappointing back half of the season for the Dragons after they started pretty well.
Well, look, the Dragons season pretty much died with those idiots and none of the better. Why the coppers I can't even talk about that situation. It's just so farcical, isn't it? You think, are these people any brains at all? And look, once that happened, that was the end. The one thing is it's precipitated the clear out, and with a bit of look, if that hadn't have happened, the chances are a lot of those kind of problem players are still on the books next season. And if you look at the Dragons, they've been in this kind of lull now for quite some time. The last thing they need is another season with another bunch of deadbeats, sucking down the salary cap.
Well, they're losing Norman. Corey Norman's going, isn't he? So I must admit, the kids who've been playing through the last couple of weeks, what's his name, Jaden Sullivan, I I can't remember the Talatau, can't remember Amoni, is it? He's played standoff last couple of weeks and has been great. And the guy who's given the opportunity so that they can let Matt Duffy go to the Bulldogs, Tyrell Sloan. They all look like exciting prospects, and it's good. It's good for them, I suppose. Okay, then the two Sunday games. Again, we did say Manly Bulldogs, although it looked like on paper it was going to be a walkover, but a very competitive game. I thought the Bulldogs were pretty unlucky. Again, a bit of Tommy magic that kind of turned the game again. We'll do the stat line: 260 meters, 4 line breaks, 9 tackle busts, another hat trick. I thought they got a bit of luck at the green. There was the issue with the Turbo's first try, and then the issue with Tapau, which was ridiculous. Speaking as a long hair.
Yeah. Well, look, it was interesting that it had been mentioned that Trbojevic, this is the worst game he played all season. If the worst game you've played all season, you managed to get a hat trick and 4 or 5 tackle. Yeah, and I don't know how many other. He sets up at least. He should have set up 3, but one of them was blown. The first try he scored, there was no way he dropped that ball.
Yeah,
I don't know what the bunker was playing out there at all. It was obviously dropped the ball. Maybe they were just as starstruck with Tommy Turbo as the rest of the Fox League people are.
Yeah, interesting stat. 61% possession for Manly. That was despite the Bulldogs having an 82% completion rate. So they're obviously doing something right. But I guess if you're running in the tracks, I mean, they certainly were the second half there. They really kind of turned the game. It didn't quite a bit, didn't they? Really, but I believe they're looking at unchanged side for the final game of the season as well, Manly, which is an interesting point considering most of the other contenders are resting a couple of players. On to Panthers, who disposed of West, and again, West did a final, a good defensive performance in the first half. The class kind of told in the end. The win means that Nathan Cleary is now on 17-0 during the course of 2021, 15 wins in the NRL, 2 Origin wins as well. And Pangai scored on his debut for the Panthers. Nothing much. I mean, we know we've talked about the Tigers, but the Panthers looking good though.
Yeah, well, especially since that a few people are kind of wondering if the storm of they're starting to pick up a few injuries just at the point where Penrith are starting to get players back. Look, injuries can derail any season, can't they?
Well, the big thing for that, the big thing on that is the change with Pappenhausen and Hines in it and Smith and Grant. That's been the big talking point this week. I mean, I'll throw that question through before we go on to start previewing the final round. I'll throw that question to you now. Would you change it back? Do you go with Smith at hooker and Hines at fullback, or do you keep with your guys Pappenhausen and Grant? I think the Smith one's a no-brainer, and I'll be honest with you, I would do the same with Hines, but it's Bellamy's call. What would you do?
Well, look, they're a very honest bunch at Melbourne. I think they're a side that practices the dark arts. Don't get me wrong, but they're very honest with each other. And I think that Bellamy, look, Pappenhausen, before he got cracked round the head, he was, as top 3, 4, 5 players in the competition. Ever since then, he's not been the same, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't be so much of a problem if his replacement hadn't been, so consistent all season, and not just consistent, consistently good. And the thing is, look, these are professional players. They've got to know that they've got to be accountable for their performances. Bellamy, I don't think Bellamy would look particularly great putting the favouring Pappenhausen over, because look, the players want to win. I mean, look, they're all big on each other, but they're big on winning as well. And look, Pappenhausen has got many years ahead of him. If he had to sit on the bench, it's no disgrace. It's not like his form's dropped off a cliff. It's just that the guy that has taken his job has been so good that really, I think it would be a bit of an injustice not to play. Well, for me, their form is kind of not dipped, but it's certainly ever since we started messing around with Pappenhausen, and I get the feeling that they're trying to literally force him back into the side. It's not just easing back in; it's just almost forcing back in.
They lost the rhythm and lost the groove, really, didn't they?
Yeah. Look, Bellamy, if he's the coach I think he is, he will change it, but it's a tough choice. Isn't it?
Okay, on to the final round then. We'll go through. Storm still in a battle for the top spot, technically, although they've got way superior points difference. So if they win, the top spot will be theirs. If they lose, it puts Penrith in with a chance of clinching second. Souths are already cemented in third. Still a slight chase for fourth. Manly, Roosters, and the Eels are in the hunt for that. Eels play the Storm, Roosters, the Raiders. And Manly, who Manly playing now? Cowboys, isn't it? So I think we would expect Manly to win that one, and the points difference at the moment. So that should set up, we reckon, Manly in fourth, probably Roosters fifth, Eels sixth. So with the Knights seventh, we've only got now an interest which is in for the eighth spot. So we'll go through this. We will preview the games, but we're going to skip through the ones that really don't matter. First game of the round, which is the Thursday night, tomorrow's game, the Raiders in ninth against the Roosters sixth. Roosters already depleted, now missing more players. I believe Waria Hargreaves and Crichton are back after suspension for Crichton. Walker remains on the bench. Josh Morris back after announcing his retirement at the end of the season. Sia Soliol in for Ryan Sutton, who made, I think it was 2 or 3 hours last week, was it? I think in the game. So, and Charles is back at fullback, which means Rapana goes to the wing. Must win for the Raiders. Can they do it, Geoff?
Yeah, they can do it.
Do we want them to do it?
Well,
who do you want this eighth team? If you had the choice between the Raiders, Sharks, and Titans.
Well, look, I would like Holbrook's side to get in there, but look, I don't think they've got the firepower to do it. So, I'll always let the Raiders, really. So
yeah,
let the Raiders get in here. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'll back you on that. I think I fancy him as well. I must admit, I think it'll be a tight game, but I fancy them, which then sets us up for which should be a belter then on Friday morning, which is the Sharks against the Storms. As I said, Storms can tie up the minor premiership here. They run the risk of losing it if they get beat. The Sharks have to win to stay in, so we have to be clear on that. Matt Moylan comes in after easing himself back from injury. Adolkar's out. Jesse Bromwich is out. Hines is playing at standoff in place of Munster, who's having a week away. Reema Smith, Welch, Kafusi, and Kenny Bromwich all rested. Finucane, Asif Solomona are back from Melbourne. So although they're slightly depleted, then there's still Jerome Hughes playing. Pappenhausen still playing. Brandon Smith still playing. So still a good side. Sharks have been solid, and there is a bit of rival between these two teams. They tend to be close games. So can the Sharks do it? Or are you expecting Storms?
Well, look, I've been down on the Sharks the last 3 weeks, so and they've kind of proved me wrong. So I think I'm gonna have to jump. I'm gonna have to back them at some point, aren't I? Really? So yeah, I back them. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm deep down, I'm hoping they both lose and the Titans have got a chance. But I can't see it.
No.
Okay, then possible decider for Premiership. If the Storms have lost against the Sharks, then that puts Penrith in the box seat for finishing first. Where I'm not sure finishing first is as good as finishing second, given that you could play Manly, but that doesn't matter. Gutherson's rested. Paulo's out suspension. Moses, Blake, and Nicore arrested. Will Smith and Jake Arthur to start for the Eels, and Kickhouse coming off the bench to start. I mean, there's really only one winner here. So if the Panthers are on for the minor premiership, it's theirs, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, they need to. They've been a bit sketchy since the 2/3 into the season, and which I don't think they were all that bothered about, because they had the problem last season of having all so much success through the regular season and then just blowing up in the final. I don't think anybody's all that bothered about the form dropping off. But what they need to do now is, if you're going into the finals, you've got to get some form going in there. And I think they'll be targeting this game. This is a must-win game for Penrith.
Yeah. They're definitely trying to keep it over. I mean, bearing that in mind, what's your thoughts on Parramatta having just turned over? I mean, it was. Oh, did we talk about that game? I can't remember.
You mentioned
about that game, did I?
You mentioned it, yeah. But then I think you just moved on. So.
Oh God, I skipped over that game. Didn't know. Well, we can talk about it now, then, can't we? Really, which was last week's game against the Storm, which was a big surprise. Hence the reason why flying the flag for the Eels. Thought they were superb last week. Forwards, Nathan Brown, Papali'i, Paulo really raised the game. Moses played well. Blake Ferguson again. Gutherson wasn't doing his. It wasn't on his own this time, I think. And even Dylan Brown showed up. He's pretty much not been in the. He's not done much all season, but he was all over the place that game. I thought it was an absolutely epic performance by Parramatta.
Yeah, well, look, all I can kind of think is that, a few of the fans are going to be watching that and thinking what might have been for this season, because...
Oh, what's going to be?
Yeah, well, they're certainly leaving it late. If they manage to make a run for the finals now, it would be as late as you can leave it at any point in the season. But look, they did what they did. They did what they did best. They played to their strengths. They've got a lot of big guys, and when they get those big guys got up ahead of steam, they can be a problem for any side. But it's just whether the guys scheming behind them in the halfback positions. Again, it comes down to halfbacks, doesn't it? It comes back to the guys who've got to use their. Yeah, they've got to come up with the game intelligence, and for one of
they did against Melbourne. In fairness to them, didn't they? They were moving the ball around to, that I think we've discussed this earlier in the season, haven't you? That you've got to get away from those front three of Melbourne, those middle three of Melbourne, where they just suffocate you, they smother you, slow the play down, and you've got to move it out. And they did that very. I mean, the try which what's his name scored, Ferguson scored on the right wing, which was a brilliant pass from Moses. And I thought that was typical of how you beat Melbourne. You got to take the chance, but what else do you do?
Yeah, well, again, people have got to kind of look at that and look at it in the tape at the end of the game and think to themselves, well, look, this is what we are capable of. Look, I'm also conscious of the fact that, well, I'm not saying Melbourne tried to throw the game away, but again, going in with an unbeaten record into the finals, that's a good thing. But it can also. But
they could have lost that this week. They could have waited. They could have got the record and then waited a week, and then
they could have done. They could have done
with half a side, because they were definitely up for it. There was no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know how they lost, other than they were outplayed. Really, I mean, it's not a good point for Melbourne, but. You can't think it's going to impact them too much, can you?
No.
The question is, with Parramatta, they get the finally win. They prove that they can compete, and then he rests all the players the week after. Good decision, bad decision?
No, look, I think you've got to ride that horse until it drops. Really.
Really? Okay. I disagree with you there. I think I'm okay with that. I think. We know we can do it. Let's get our rest and then let's go at it proper again. Because you only have to do 3 more games. Okay. Then we'll go on to we'll talk next really, which is the Titans at the Warriors. Although that's the Sunday game. Fotuaika back to prop. Harris to back in for Chad Townsend. I mean the Titans have left it late really, haven't they? They could have had their own this is could have won last week and put things in their own, in their own control, and they kind of rely on other results. I'm sure some people say it's a slightly disappointing season. I think they kind of were the kind of expected to be 8th, 9th. I wasn't expecting much higher than that.
No, I think if anything, it's kind of highlighted the folly of if you aren't sure about your halfbacks, then you don't expect them the problem to fix itself. And I think that's really kind of what if you were to ask Holbrook, where it kind of gone on, I think if he was honest, I think there's been a nagging voice in the back of his head that's been saying, look, you've not got the halfbacks, you're not the halfbacks. And he's thought, I'll try to be fair to these guys. Let's see if we can coach them up and whatever.
Okay,
Look, go with those first instincts. He should have pulled the trigger at the beginning of the season. And this is what he definitely will do for next season. So,
okay.
But I think the
sure at the beginning of the season, but okay. You're Mr. Ruthless, I'm not. Okay. Broncos play the Knights again. Lots of resting for that. So I mean, Manly against the Cowboys. I think that's the only game that matters, really, isn't it? Manly could secure 4th spot, put them in a difficult position, potentially facing Melbourne. I think they would prefer to play Melbourne than Penrith. They're going to beat the Cowboys, you would think, full strength, Manly.
Yeah. But they're the kind of bogey side that no one really wants to face in the finals, out there. And in order for that kind of bogeyman to have some kind of create some kind of fear factor, they've got to do the business, running into the finals. I think they'll do that. I think they'll.
Okay. I mentioned the Broncos Knights. The other 2 games, it's a shame that where they are, because Rabbits against Dragons, I mean, that's a big rival. That's usually a big game. It'll be a non-event now. And then the final game on Sunday, which even when they're at the bottom of the table is usually a cracker. Bulldogs against West. Hopefully, I'm hoping West can finish on a positive there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, really. They need something. They need. Look, if you've had a bad season, you always want to try to at least end the season, with some kind of a victory. It gives the fans and the players something to bite onto. It was interesting, actually, that I think it was on the Melbourne podcast they were talking about they'd like to see Bateman going back and maybe joining Maguire at the Tigers for next season. And look, if he was 100% fit again to go over there, he was playing up to his capacity, he'd be the ideal signing for him, really, because that's the type of player you really want. But it's whether he's going to be, whether that shoulder of his is.
Bateman's not going over there, mate. He's sorting his missus out with a job over here, according to Twitter this morning. So I don't think there's any plans for him to return. So that one's gone. But they've got Gildart coming anyway. They've got Gildart and Hastings next year. So Gildart will score a few tries. I'm not sure he's going to plug the defence, but...
You mean from the side that scores no tries?
Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. And perhaps on that note, we'll round it up for this week. So thanks very much to Geoff.
Yep. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, and we'll do it slightly different next week. Like I say, we'll be looking back a bit more at the season, maybe looking at our favourite players, because there's only a few games, 4 games to chew over for previewing next week, and most of the games this week are dead rubbers. So thanks very much for tuning in. Enjoy Rugby League. We do.
Yeah, we do.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It was better than Lego. It was better than Lego. It was better than Lego.